miniature lovers, welcome back to Miniature Fairy Tales. My name is Carissa, and today you might be asking yourself whether you're experiencing deja vu or not. Is this not the desk you saw a couple of months ago at the Mad Extravaganza? Well, the answer is sort of. Today I'd like to introduce you to his baby brother in 1/24 scale. Now this plan is going to be a little bit different because this version has working drawers and a working cupboard with shelves and hinges. So this SVG will be available on my Etsy store, but it is worth making a new video for this one for all you 1/24 scale lovers just like me. But let's not stop there. For all you 1/12 scale lovers who are a bit disappointed that it's not available in SVG, fear not. My SVG files are resizable, so as long as you've got thicker materials, you can still make this in 1/12 scale. So sit back, relax, and I really hope you enjoy. So here we are back at my cutting mat again, my favourite place to be, and in front of me are all the pieces for this 1/24 scale design. Now you will see there are some variations. You'll see there is inside left and inside right with the two black lines on it in the frame here, and they are going to help to guide you with the drawers and the shelves. So I'll show you how to put them together later on, but they are a variation from the original design. So first up we are going to work on our layers and our pairs. So I'm starting here with the top of the desk. I'm adding the outside frame, and then I'll add the inside portion, which will leave us with that lovely little groove around the top. So we're going to put those together first, and then we're going to make our way through the pairs. So that is the back of the desk and the side parts of the desk. There are some inside parts of the desk, and then there will be back paneling as well. So we'll make our way through those, and as we put our pairs together, we'll set them aside to dry so that once we make our way through all of the paired up pieces, by the time we get to the end, the first ones that we did will be dry and we'll be able to start connecting them together. Now for every layering that you do, every set of layering and every set of pairs that you put together, I would like you to always use your roller or your fingers if you don't have a roller to push everything down nice and tight, and then I want you to always use your skewer to clear away any excess. I may not show you that every time I glue something in this video, but I want you to do that for every portion because that will make sure that everything is sitting nice and firm and tight with all our edges in line just the way we need it to be. The other thing I'd like you to do, unless I specifically tell you differently in this video, is to always glue your pairs together so that the labels are hiding. And when you do that, please write in pencil what they are, because you can always rub that off later, but you can't rub off the labels unfortunately. So do glue them to hide them, or you can leave the labels facing to the back as long as you know that that part will be hidden inside the desk. With these pairs for the front of the desk, please do take care not to add too much glue here because the pieces are very fine, and when wet with glue they will tear easily. So just leave your glue as light as you possibly can, and then when you're putting these pieces together, do take extra care to make sure that they don't bend or warp. And as you're lining everything up, just do be careful to not rip anything. Now you'll see I'm looking at the side panels of the desk, and you'll see that I'm using these ones I mentioned earlier with the markings on them. So what I want you to do is I want you to glue them with the labels both facing the same way, and that will ensure that the markings on that guided piece will be to the inside of the desk, so that when it comes time to attach the shelves, it will be able to show. And meanwhile, on the other side, the label for the back frame of that side piece will be hidden. So yep, just glue them facing the same way, and then add that outer panel on with its label facing the same way also. So what we end up with is the labels all hidden and the guides showing on the back. And we'll use the exact same process for the labels for the pieces of the other side. Okay, so at this point we've completed the top of the desk, the tiers for under the top of the desk. We have completed the front of the desk, the back of the desk, and we've completed both side panels. And now we're going to move on to the next portion, which is our door. So you will find with all of the layered panelled pieces, they're all quite similar. There is a back panel, a frame panel, and an inside panel. And for the back panels and the door and the side panels, they're all the same. The frame goes to the outside, the inner frame goes in the middle, and of course the backing panel goes to the back. Just remember to hide your labels and keep everything nice and centered by eye. These next small parts are the drawer fronts. Again, please do use the same care as you used with the front of the desk for these little outside frames, because they really are quite tiny and quite fragile. So just minimal amount of glue to pop that on to the backing part of the drawer front. And there are 3 of these to complete. Once those are done, moving on to the back panels. So again, these are the same as the door and the side panels. There are 3 parts: the backing frame, the outer frame, and the inside panel. And there are 3 of these back panels to complete. And these are all labelled BP for back panel. Once that's completed, we can move back to our desk front, which should be dry by now. And we can add this little upside down U-shaped, maybe it's N-shaped, decorative piece. Again, just like the frames for the drawer fronts, this is very fine and very delicate when you're gluing, so do take a little bit of extra care. And when you're lining this up around the leg opening portion of the desk front, just be careful to try and keep it straight. It's very easy to bend out of shape, so take a little bit of time and care and just make sure that you put it on nice and straight, because it's great for the end result. Now we can move on to the bottom platforms. So you'll see that there are 3 parts to this. So there is the base platform, which what we'll call the legs attached to, and then on top of that there are 2 tiers. So one is slightly smaller than the other, and so what I like to do is I like to glue the little tiers together first and let them dry, and then I like to attach the legs to the base part of the tier, let that dry, and then I like to add the tiers onto the the base, and that's the base completed. Now the legs of the base get glued to the long edge, and that long edge is glued to the top of that base platform. So what I like to do is lay the leg down flat on my mat, and I like to join the base part to it, and that just allows me a nice sharp corner, and it allows me to keep everything flush and neat, and it also allows me more control when I'm gluing, because I get to hold on to the bigger part, which gives me more control. So the two longer pieces are glued in the same fashion, and then the two shorter pieces are also glued onto the top end of that flat base platform, but they are glued in between the two long ones. So in a minute you'll see me, once I get this longer one attached, once it's sat for a short moment, I'll then spread those two long ones slightly apart, and I'll slot the little end ones in between them. It doesn't take long with tacky glue to be able to do this. It takes fairly quickly with Cricut craft board, which is what I'm using here. So you can pretty much do the whole thing in one process. There really isn't much drying time. And we've got two of these base platforms to make. Now there's one end in place, and now the other end going into place. You'll see me use my skewer quite a bit when I'm making these pieces, and that's just to remove excess glue. The reason that I do this is because when it comes to painting or varnishing later, we don't want the glue to affect how that turns out. So on the underside of these, it's not so bad, because technically you're not really going to see it unless you pick the desk up. But I am in the habit of removing excess glue on all of the parts, no matter where they are, just to give it a nice and neat finish. Now while those base tiers are drying, I'm going to start moving on to the drawers now. Now these are similar to how the base platforms are put together. The only difference is that the small short back piece of the drawer is actually glued to all of the ends. So you can see here that the long edges go on top of the base piece, just like we did for the base platforms. But this shorter edge here, this is going to go on top of all of the edges. So it's going to be glued to all of the edges rather than going in between the long edges. And that's just to keep it in size so that it will still fit into the drawer holes. I recommend that you test them in the drawer holes at this stage, just to make sure everything fits, and if it is a little too snug you can always trim a little bit off. And of course we have 3 drawers to make, so use the same process for all 3. I'd like to move on to the inside parts of the desk now. So we'll be using LIP and RIP, which are your left and right inner panels. So these are glued down to the edge of that opening of the front of the desk. And of course be careful on which side you want your drawers and your cupboard to be on. If you glue these to the wrong side, you'll end up with having things reversed, which isn't too big a deal unless you specifically really want the drawers or the door on one side or the other. And then once they're drying, you can take the tiers for the base platforms and attach them to the base platforms now. So you should have a 3-stepped effect on each of your base platforms. Okay, now moving on to that back of the desk, we're going to attach those side panels in. So you'll see that from the labels you'll have a left side and a right side. So the guides will go towards the inside to help you with your shelves and your drawers later. And just as you did with the inner panels, they go directly on the edge of the back piece. Now those guidelines have been put in place and they match up exactly with where the edges of the drawer holes go. So this is going to help you when you're putting in the drawer supports later. Do make sure that your panels are sitting at 90-degree angles, and do make sure that all your excess glue is removed. And then when you have had some sufficient drying time, you can go ahead and start adding in your shelves. So I want you to line the edge of your shelf up with those guidelines. And you can also test it in between the openings in the drawers to make sure that everything looks good before you glue. And as I'm doing here, you can also turn around that front of the desk and line it up with the back and make sure that you're happy with how everything's sitting. So you'll see here I'm testing in the shelf sizes just to make sure that everything's good before I glue. And then when I'm happy, I will add glue to the two edges of the shelf or the drawer support. Both the same thing. So I'll add glue to the two edges that will connect to the front and the inner panel, or the outer panel, however you choose to glue them. So for me, this time on the drawer side, I've chosen to use the center between the drawers as a guide, and I'll be able to straighten this up once I marry this part up with the rest of the drawers. But for now, this is how I have chosen to put the drawer supports in. Once I have those supports in and they're a bit more stable, I can now add this entire front piece to the back piece, and I can check to see how those supports are lining up with my guides on the left hand side. And once I'm happy, I can then test the size of the shelves for the cupboard side. And when I'm happy that that's going to fit in snugly, I'll take the whole top part off and I'll glue in my shelf supports on the right hand side. But just before I work on those cupboard supports, I'm going to add in piece UT1, which is under top 1. And this goes in between the left inner panel and the right inner panel, and sits just on top of the edge of that top part of the opening of the desk. So I'm putting this in place just to have everything nice and square, because this does help to square up the desk, and that will help me when I'm implementing the other shelf parts. So we're gluing those in now, and as I mentioned earlier, we're using the guides on that right hand side just to have a good idea of where to put those shelf supports so that they are nice and centered inside the cupboard. So again, I'm just gluing two sides. I'm lining that up with the edge with the guide on it, and then I'll turn it a little bit just to make sure that it's level on the other side. And then once I'm happy with it, I'll allow that to dry. Now, again, it doesn't have to be exact, especially if you're going to keep the cupboard door closed. But if you like a nice, neat finish, I do take the extra time just to make sure that things are straight and level. Now, at this point, when the front and the back of the desk are still separate, if you're choosing to paint your piece, This is a really good opportunity to be able to get into the little nooks and crannies that you won't be able to once the desk is completed. So I would suggest perhaps starting to paint the front and the shelves, and of course the back of the desk if you wish, remembering we are going to have back panels, so you may wish to use to keep that until later. But this is the perfect opportunity to paint the inside parts of the desk that you won't be able to get to later. So if you want to take that opportunity, now's the time. In this construction video though, we're not going to be painting this piece today. So now my drawers should be nice and dry, and this is a really good opportunity to add on my drawer fronts. So the only thing I'm going to need to be careful with here is that the bottom of my drawer is flush with the bottom edge of the drawer front. And this is because if I glue the drawer too close to the top of the drawer front, the bottom of the drawer front might interfere with the next set of drawers. So if I make sure that the bottom of the drawer is flush with the bottom of the drawer front, the measurements will be good and everything will fit snugly. There will be some slight overhang on the side edges of the drawer, and that's perfectly fine because that is going to ensure that any gaps in the drawer hole are covered up. Alright, now it's time for my favourite part. This is the part where we get to put the front and the back together. So I usually add glue to these inner panel portions, and I'll also add glue to the side panels. And when you put the front and the back together, you will feel the drawer supports and the shelves slide into place, and everything will feel very secure and very snug. So when you do this, there won't be much room for error. Everything should just easily fit into place. All it will take from you is lining up of the edges, and you should have yourself a very sturdy construction. Now, if you saw my videos for the Mad Extravaganza where I did this desk in 112, you will notice some variations in the construction here. That one didn't have working drawers, it didn't have shelves or drawer supports. So this is slightly different, but also lots of things are exactly the same. So at this point we're going to move on to the top tiers of the desk. So I have the main top part and I have the bit that sits under that with the tiers on it. So again, adding a nice light layer of glue, we're going to put those together and roll them out to make sure that they're nice and flush and there's no excess. And then when you're comfortable that that's had a little bit of drying time, you can add some glue to the top edges of the top side of the desk. And then when you turn it over, do take time to line it up and center it. Make sure that it is in the right place, and you can lower that down and let that one dry. At this point we are going to dry trial our bottom platforms to make sure that we like the way that they look, and then when you're ready to, add a little bit of tacky glue to the bottom edges of the desk where those platforms will sit, and just take your time, do these one at a time so that you can line them up to the center and make sure they're sitting exactly as you want. You don't have to rush through this process. Do make sure you get it right, because if one of these is out or on a different angle, it will change the look of the whole desk. So it's important to get these two parts equal and centered and nice and straight if you can. Okay, once those bottom platforms are on, they're going to give us some spacing guidance so that we can attach the back panels. So I usually start by gluing my back panel, and I attach the first one to the center point in between the two bottom platforms. So that will give me the center of the back piece, and then it's much easier after that point to put the other two in. So I center the other two into the middle point of the bottom platforms, if that makes sense. And once I do that, I have 3 nice evenly spaced panels on the back that do look very decorative and give the piece a very classic look. Now at this point I want to move on to the door, and in your SVG, if you are watching this as an instructional video, you will see that your door pieces have little parts cut out of them, and that's because I perfected the door after I made this video. So I'm now going to insert instructions on how to add hinges to your door from another video that I previously made. So you can see here in front of me I have 2 door pieces with little cutouts on the side. Now those little cutout pieces on the side, they measure 7mm by 1mm, and they are just little indentations on the side of the door, and to me this is the key to making good hinges. So now that I've got the front of the door complete, I've just turned it over. And now I'm going to be working on the actual metal part of the hinges. So now I am taking just some regular size staples. I think they're 26x6 staples, your normal size that you'd use in any office. And I'm just using a pin here to separate them off. So all I need here is 2 staples, and they're going to form the metal basis of our hinges. So I just found using a pin was the easiest way to just pop them off the edge. Now these next little things that you'll see me pull out of my container I have used before. These are called glass bugle beads. Now you can find these at any craft shop that deals in jewellery making. They are just little long hollow beads. And my ones measure 7mm by 2mm, and you can see how half of the bead is jutting out from that little gap I've created, which is why I have made my cutouts in the door that size. Now you do not have to use glass bugle beads, you could use anything cylindrical, but the reason I like these is because the end of the staple fits really well into them. And they're the perfect size for my 1/24 scale doors. And you can see here how well the end of that staple fits into the bugle bead. It's almost a perfect length and a perfect fit. So now I'm giving you an example of how things are going to sit. The bugle bead is going to sit in the gap, and the staple is going to sit across the back of that door. So I dry trial them like this so that I can see exactly where that staple needs to sit, because it does need to jut out a little bit from the edge of the door in order for there to be enough room for that bugle bead to house it. And then once I've got the position of where the staple needs to be, I hold it in place and I very carefully let it go. And we're going to be using super glue to hold this one down today, mostly because I want an instant attachment. So gem glue would normally be okay because it's metal, but it would take longer. So a little dab here of super glue is what I'll be using to hold it in place. Now one little dab actually is quite a bit, so I need to use a skewer to spread around the super glue, otherwise it's going to be too wet when we put the other side of the door on. And now using the exact same process for the next little hinge. And with my skewer, I'm making sure that that super glue is spread over all of the edges, so both the inside edge and the outside edge, to make sure that the staple is entirely covered. And now at this point I have the other side of my door. So making sure that I'm gluing on the correct side, that is the side that's going to flip over and sit on top of the one with the staples. I'm just going to add some tacky glue in here and make sure that I've got some good coverage there. And then I'm going to flip it over and line up the gaps. And I'm going to attach that to the back of the first layer of the door. So this is going to add some thickness to the door, but it's also going to cover up the rest of the staples. So it'll offer two things: more stability for the staples, but also to cover up the staples. So that in the end all we have is one little edge of those staples protruding out, and they're our little hinge mechanism. Now, it does end up being quite thick and a little bit bulky because of the staples, so do press it down quite firmly. Be careful to get rid of any excess that may pop out, and be careful not to glue over your ends of your staples, because that will affect them fitting back into the bugle beads. So give it a nice press down and then use your roller and go over it, and do apply some pressure. We want that stuck down as tightly as it possibly can be. When you're feeling that everything is stuck down and dry, take your bugle bead or one of your bugle beads and reattach it to one of the hinges, and do the same with the other one. You can see here it's fiddly work, particularly with my long nails, but do persevere. It will pop in there. You just have to get it on the right angle and then it'll slide right on top. Now I have this other little piece of card here, and this is just simulating whatever your door is going to attach to. Okay, so just to give you an idea of how this works. So you've got your bugles attached, and now you need to figure out where the bugle beads need to sit in order for your door to open and close, but not to leave a gap, because that's the worst thing about when you're doing your hinges, is always ending up with a gap. So in this instance I'm using gem glue. I could use super glue as well, but I didn't see a need in this case. I've moved my door and bugle bead hinges to the side just so I can see where they need to stick to. And once I've got the glue in place, I then move the bugle beads over the top of the glue, not the door. So it's very, very important to only stick down the beads and not the door. So you stick them down in place and then let it dry. So once everything's dry, do open and close the door a couple of times just to loosen it up. It will feel a little tight to start with, but once you move it around a little bit, it will loosen up. So there you have it, guys. That's how you put hinges on your door, and I hope that you could follow that okay, and that you'll use that technique if you choose to make this. Well, that brings us to the end of our tutorial today, guys. So I want to thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing and do click on the notification bell so that you'll be notified when my next video comes up. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.